Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
To introduce you, you worked as a makeup artist and hair PR for over 30 years.
Almost 40.
Almost 40, wow. And you are now a content creator and copywriter. And tonight, you're going to share how to stay relevant and ageless in midlife. And I think you're the perfect person to share some secrets. You said that you wanted to discuss hair, skin, makeup, and how to protect ourselves from skin cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, cool. What do you want to start with?
Well, I think possibly the first thing to start with is about your brain. Because it doesn't matter what you do in terms of your hair and makeup and how you dress if you don't mentally feel young. And I can always remember when my mother was in her early 80s, phoning her one night quite late, and I was talking to her and she said, I need to go now. I want to watch this program that was called Eurotrash, which was Jean-Paul Gaultier was in it.
Jean-Paul Gaultier, yes, I remember.
And I went, what, you watched that? And she kind of, well, I obviously couldn't see her, but you know, I heard this sort of aghast sound, and she said, what I liked when I was 26, I like when I'm in my 80s. And I think that is a very good concept, and I agree with that, and that's a kind of ethos that I try to live by. If I'm out with my friends who are 20 years younger than me, some of them, I don't ever think that I can't do what they're doing.
It's a mindset.
And I suppose that goes beyond that, because I'm quite, by character, quite competitive. So if I'm, you know, just like, I went to a Pilates class a couple of weeks ago and most of the people were clearly in their 20s. Well, that's not going to stop me trying to do every position there. Despite the fact I had a knee replacement in 2019. And I, you know, if I'm skiing, I'm competitive to other people. I worked with someone who was very competitive, and I think he instilled that in me. I'm not sure I was like it when I was a kid. So I think that kind of having a young mentality is fundamental to surviving as you get old.
As we're getting into midlife, we have to accept that there's going to be changes. But it doesn't mean that we have to forget who we are, and we have to stop what we used to do.
Yeah. And I suppose, you know, thinking then about the menopause, I'm postmenopausal. I was very lucky in as much as I ignored it. I did put on some weight around that time, but there were other factors in that I was traveling to London every week from Cornwall, which is 5 hours on the train. And so I was, you know, eating cake and biscuits and coffee and having coffees and chocolate just to pass the time. And I was also, my mother by then wasn't well, and I was driving then from Cornwall to Dorset on a Friday every week to see her, and again eating chocolate in the car. So I put on weight. But so it was, you know, possibly partly the menopause, but that was it. I didn't take HRT, and I basically tried to attack it through diet as opposed to any other issue.
So you did it all naturally?
Yes.
That's great.
But then I also was I had a natural birth as well. And it's not because I'm against taking any painkillers or drugs. I just did.
Yeah, sometimes it just happens, and you're fine with it.
Perhaps I was very fortunate in that I had a couple of skin cancers, including a melanoma, when I was in my early 40s.
Sorry, how did you find out about your skin cancer? Was it obvious that it was dodgy?
I had a tiny white spot on just there.
On your face?
And one day I touched it and it bled, and it just rang a bell with me. So I went to the doctors. That wasn't a melanoma, that was a basal cell carcinoma. I had another on my chest and another couple on my shoulder, but I had a mole on my shoulder that was a melanoma. And the same guy, I went there and he said, you know, you're okay. It's got to be 7 millimeters into your deep to go into your system. Yours is 3.5. He said, but at some point I'd like to cut a bit more like muscle away. And then he looked at my face and he went, this was quite late on about 7 o'clock on a Friday night. And he said, maybe it is urgent. Let me make a call. And he happened to be in a hospital the next day. So he operated on me the next day. I mean, when I say he operated on me, it took half an hour. I didn't have an anaesthetic. In fact, I went out to lunch afterwards just to kind of cheer myself up. But I've never sunbathed since then. I mean, when I say I've never sunbathed, I've never, if I go on holiday, I try and be under an umbrella or I wear a hat. I don't tend to lie around in a bikini or a swimsuit. I would tend to wear a t-shirt. I don't worry so much about my lower arms because I also think it's important to get some vitamin D.
Yeah.
And if it's this time of evening I don't mind being out in the sun. It's just, being sensible, basically. But if you don't sit in the sun, then you don't get so many wrinkles. Obviously, you get laugh lines and frown lines and all this sort of thing, but you don't get the problems that the sun brings to your skin and your hair, actually. People forget that the sun damages your hair as well as your skin. You can't stop getting old and you can't stop aging. So you have to accept it to a certain extent. My mother had a couple of skin cancers, as did my husband's mother. She gets checked, but I don't. And I actually went through the process of that with my doctor, and he phoned up at the hospital, and the dermatologist said no, because it's over 20 years. I don't need to be checked all the time. So it's up to me to be careful, really.
So you know where to look on your skin and what it should look like. And
funnily enough, I don't have many moles, and I was a natural redhead. It's just gone this colour. So I have freckles when I've been in the sun, and I've got a lot of freckles on my hands now, but I actually don't have many moles. So it's very easy for me to check moles. But basal cell carcinomas are not moles. They almost look like a thinning of the skin. And I think that the thing that slightly freaked me out, the one on my chest, was so I had a white spot on my ear, and on my chest it was a tiny circle of almost like broken veins. But then on my shoulder, I could see the skin was very sort of thin looking. And then again, when I touched it, it bled. So I think, it's the same thing as bowel cancers and all that sort of thing. If anything bleeds, you get it checked.
Yeah, it's important. And to trust your gut feeling, because sometimes some GPs might just discard it because they're not aware. So if you feel like something isn't...
So the other thing, as you age, you do get a lot of lumps and bumps and small sort of skin tags and things like that. So I think it's just worth getting things checked if you're worried.
What do you do with your skin now to protect your skin, to keep your skin glowing?
To be honest, I'm not totally loyal to any brand.
Okay.
For many, many, many years, I didn't spend a lot of money. I had a mother who had very good skin. I mean, my mother died when she was 92, and her skin looked beautiful. She only ever used Nivea on her face, and she always washed her skin with a flat soap and flannel, and she didn't sit in the sun.
Do you think we should spend a lot of money on products for our skin?
I don't know. It's such a hard thing to say. I mean, there are hugely expensive products that you can buy.
I'm aware.
I was reading about one yesterday, which was devised by a German specialist, and I looked then online, and it's £245 for a little tub, and I thought I wouldn't spend that. And so there's a lot of it's the same. At the end of the day, it's the same as makeup and fragrances. There's a certain amount you're paying for packaging, there's a certain amount you're paying for advertising and marketing, and then all the development, the money that goes into R&D. So there's a lot of reasons why products cost a lot of money. I think they're good. I think you need hydration, I think you need moisturizing, and I think you need to cleanse your face carefully, and I think there are ways to make it look more glowing. I am still, even of all the beauty articles that I read and all the promises, still slightly skeptical whether things can go through your skin to actually improve it from the inside out. And I probably, in my heart of hearts, despite the fact that I do sometimes buy quite expensive products, believe that it's what you do, so what you eat and your lifestyle, and not drinking too much and not smoking, which probably affects your skin more than the creams you're putting on it.
I Totally agree. There is so much that you can put on your screen to a main thing, but I think beauty has to come from the inside outside.
Yeah.
If you're properly hydrated, you know, it shows on the skin, and in a, I think, more natural way that any product you can put on your skin. For your hair, you said that with age, you know, and the sun could damage the hair. Do you have any secrets? Anything that you do on top of the
I mean,
nutrition?
I have been very, very lucky that I've worked with some of the best hairdressers in the world, and it's only the last year that I've ever had to pay to get my hair cut, which is probably why it's as long as it is. It was a shock to my system actually having to pay, and I worked for a very big hairdressing group for quite a long time, and then the company split, and I then worked for their product company. So again, I've had a PR cupboard full of products that I could use forever and a day. And it's been interesting to me again in the last 18 months that I'm not working for that company specifically, that I also have a network of hairdressers that have worked with me in the past or I've known. So they do sometimes send me products to try and use. And it's been an eye-opener because I'd only used the one brand I was working for. But again, there are products that will protect your hair. So I tend to be honest, I've got quite thick hair and my hair is quite healthy. So I'm not particularly fussy about what shampoo I use. I always use conditioner. Occasionally I'll give my hair a treatment, but I always then apply a heat protective spray. So that usually most of them have UV protection in them, as well as protecting from hair dryers and curling tongs and straighteners, etc. And then I normally use, depending on what I'm going to do with my hair, a product to either give it volume, in which case I can curl it more easily, or another product to make it sleeker, so more of an oil. And then I very often apply a shine spray and something on the ends to stop the ends drying. So quite a lot of products. And in fact, I did a little video a couple of days ago about how I made my hair look sort of beachy wavy, and someone said, but you use so many products. But I often, people say, well, I can't do what my hairdresser does. Your hairdresser never doesn't put products on your hair. So you're never going to be able to recreate the look the hairdresser does if you don't use the product. So what you need to be doing is asking them what they're using. And if it's an expensive brand and you don't want to spend that money, then get a like for like from the supermarket or from a pharmacy. But I think the thing there is often the hairdresser will be using the products that are right for your hair type. So it's always worth at least listening to them to see what they would advise. And then beyond that, you know, even if you want to grow your hair, getting it trimmed fairly often to ensure that you haven't got dead ends.
How often is very often?
Normally, I would get my hair cut every 8 to 10 weeks. I suppose if I'm not worried about growing out of a style, if I want to keep it in a specific style, then I'd do it every 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay,
I had a bob a really sharp bob for a while, so that it needs trimming more often.
Did you find that with all the products that you're using, your hair are in the same condition as when you were younger? I mean, as in it's the same type of hair than before. It hasn't changed.
You know what? It's really difficult for me to say because until last year, I'd had my hair coloured for,
of course,
20 years. And that makes it more of so it feels a lot softer now than it did before I coloured it. It was in good condition, and I think that's another thing. Modern hair colours don't damage your condition. Over bleaching would, but most colours can actually improve the condition, not be detrimental to it.
If it's done professionally.
No, I can't remember what my hair felt like when I was in my 20s and 30s.
You mentioned about the skin, you mentioned about the hair. What about makeup now?
Well, I would say the most important thing when it comes to makeup, in the 90s, people tended to wear a lot of foundation.
Yeah.
So it's really the products that you're using and placement where you're putting it. So when I was a makeup artist in the 80s, it was a real thing to have like a sweep of colour from just above the eyebrow round to the cheeks, and often people were using almost like purpley colours. I didn't tend to, because it wouldn't suit me anyway. But if you are, and then like Princess Diana used to wear turquoise and blues inside her eyes. So if you were still making, if you were 18 now, you could get away with that because it would look quirky. But if I wore the same makeup I wore in 1995 now, it would age me. So it's about being aware of what trends are coming. The classic is things like lip liner. So lip liner in the 90s, people wore a dark color that was unnatural and would wear a lighter or a different color lipstick than the liner. If you do that now, you will look out of date, and you will date yourself. That's the most important thing. You should be using something like a BB cream or a CC cream, which tends to, it's not heavy like a foundation, but it will even out colour, and it will help hide small broken veins that you might have around your nose or on your chin. With concealers, you don't need heavy concealers. You normally can, there's a lot that are called brightening creams now, or brightening, and you know, just put a bit on, hang on, let me take my glasses off, here, and then look down and see where your dark shadows are, and just put it there, but don't put it underneath your lashes. Otherwise your mascara comes off. Things like eyebrows. Eyebrows are so important. I always say eyebrows are as in, well, I've never had Botox, but I think that it lifts your eyes and is so anti-aging. And again, there's a lot of people that will be in their 50s and 60s now that will have plucked their brows to death when they were young, including me. And it's taken me years to actually grow them to the shape they are in now. But they're as fair as my hair, or not almost. So I dye them. I buy Eyelure brow dye in brown, and I just put it on. I'm not particularly careful how I apply it. I'm not nearly as careful as they say you should be on in the packet. Leave it on for about 10 minutes, and then it lasts for about 6 weeks.
That's great.
But I always just shape it as well, and I hold it up to get the arch because my face is going down a bit, and then I hold it there. And if you read the classic way to do brows, they will say to take the pencil on a line with your eye. I tend to stop it a bit shorter because, again, that lifts the eye. So there are quite a lot of tricks to just make your face look, again, more youthful.
I'm not that old with lots of wrinkles, but I've got some wrinkles, and sometimes I find the foundation is getting into the wrinkles. Is that because
then your foundation is too heavy?
It's too heavy.
Or you're applying it too heavily.
Okay,
So
I see.
you could apply it with a brush or with a damp sponge, or mix it with a tiny bit of liquid moisture or a tiny bit of moisturizer.
What's the difference between CC cream and light foundation?
A CC cream is color correcting, so it will correct your color.
I see.
It won't leave a film of foundation. It won't sit in your wrinkles. It's a very light, it's very light on the skin, whereas a foundation. So
it's like a colored moisturizer.
It's a bit heavier than that, but yes.
Okay, but it's closer to moisturizer than a foundation.
It's more hydrating.
It's more hydrating. That's why I said moisturizer.
Foundation tends to be more drying. It tends to be more matte. You know, there are some that will give you, will say they've got a dewy finish. And the other thing is, when applying it, is to make sure so that area, or that T area, is the area where it's heavier, because you often have the dislocations around your nose. By the time you get to your jawline or above it, you should hardly have any makeup there, so that when you kind of crisscross it there, then you don't have a line and you don't put makeup on your neck.
And would you say that as we're getting older, we should wear the same bright colors, or we should go into more of a neutral palette? Because on Instagram there is this old lady. She's 90. She's I can't remember her handle. She's Brinkley. I can't remember. But basically, she's wearing some neo colors all the time.
Yeah.
In terms of makeup, in terms of outfit, and I'm not sure if it's a persona just for Instagram or if that's who she is.
It probably is her persona.
But
I mean, I spent, as I say, many years with hairdressers, and hairdressers tend to wear black. And I know I've got black on now, but I had a wardrobe that was entirely black. You know, just black, black, black. I've added colours in the last year or so.
And you know, I get it because I'm from Paris, and in Paris, black is chic. And
yeah, absolutely.
When I moved here, people were telling me, so why are you Morticia? Why are you not wearing colors?
Yeah.
And they didn't get that actually black is very, it's the most sophisticated color you can be in Paris.
In urban life, black is easy to wear. It's, you know, it hides dust and whatever as well, even when your clothes are clean. And it's really interesting when I've done makeup videos for Instagram, because back a couple of years ago when I first started doing them, I did what's called a smoky eye, so dark eyes. And I was just wearing, it was in the summer, and I was wearing a blue and white t-shirt. I didn't think about changing my clothes to go with my makeup. And whilst some people said, oh, that's very nice, I had quite a few people saying, your makeup looks so heavy, you know, it looks ridiculous. And I thought, if I'd put big earrings on, if I'd put a black dress on, or something more evening-y, I wouldn't have looked that way. So I'm a bit more mindful now when I might do my makeup from start to finish in a t-shirt, but I go and do a shot at the end with a different top on. When you're doing makeup to camera, you can wear it, you can put it on quite heavily, and in real life it looks heavy, but when you put it on in the picture, it doesn't. So again, it's a complicated thing.
I know. I completely understand what you're saying, because I used to do television, and the host were always wearing so much makeup. Where when I was doing my segment, and I was like, oh my god, she's like, you know, like a thick layer of foundation.
Yeah.
But then when I watched the episode, it looked like so natural.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the weird stuff with, you know, the reality and television is just completely different. So totally get what you're saying. Could you tell our listeners a tip about menopause, if you have to give one tip to help? I know everyone is different. Everyone has different transition.
My daughter, she would never have known if I was menopausal, because I was always moody anyway.
Okay.
I never told anybody.
So do you think it's too much?
Do I think it's too much? What do you mean?
Yeah, like women wants to just the subject to be open and discussed everywhere all the time.
I think it should be open, but I think it's a very hard thing, because first of all you've got to admit in you know, to everyone that you're going through that. However, it might make people more understanding towards you, but you know, I think it's going to take quite a long time before men are totally sympathetic to it. You know, already it's a problem to be a mother at work. So, you know, it's like, it's a big flipping ladder for men to take on, even though they bloody well should. I think my main tip really would be to try and be honest with yourself and be honest with people, to make them understand and appreciate you. Okay. And I can certainly say from my own mother's point of view, my father was very, very strict and very old-fashioned. He didn't like her working. Very easygoing mother, but suddenly, when I was about 19 or 20, she suddenly became this sort of feisty, devilish person. And I remember her hitting me once, and I was being out of order as a sort of teen. However, it was so out of character with her. I can totally visualize that moment now. So I think, and I didn't understand. She never said what she was going through. So I think it's really, really important that the people around you know what you're suffering from.
My last question is, who do you think I should interview next? Someone who could help, understand a bit more about what menopause is and help the women in the transition.
Actually, I have a friend, and
Ooh.
we've been friends for about 17 years. She was a Pilates instructor when I first met her, which was how I did meet her. She is an absolute warrior for menopause, and she also works with old people. She has developed a system, I suppose you'd call. She works with the NHS, and she also works with very elderly people doing sort of seated Pilates, and it's all about making old people move.
Mm-hmm.
So I can give you her name, and I'm
Yes.
sure I would love you to interview her.
I'd love to. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time
Thank you very
this evening,
much.
Linda. It's been a pleasure to have you, and thank you for all your tips.